The storm came out of nowhere, rolling down from the Mogollon Rim like a living thing, black and boiling, swallowing the late afternoon sun. Ethan Cole reined in his horse on the high trail and squinted at the sky. He'd lived on the edge of Arizona territory his whole life, and still the weather could surprise him, especially in summer, when thunderheads rose fast and mean. He was 28, lean as a fence post, with hands hardened by rope and plow. Folks around Red Willow knew him as the quiet rancher who kept to himself, a man who spoke softly and worked long. They also knew, though they rarely said it out loud, that Ethan had never married, never courted, never been seen in the back room of the saloon with a woman on his arm. Some laughed. Others respected it. Ethan didn't give them much to talk about. He nudged the horse forward, searching for shelter. Lightning split the sky, close enough to rattle his teeth. The rain came hard and cold, needling his hat brim and slicking the rocks underfoot. That's when he saw the ravine. A narrow cut in the land opened to the left, choked with juniper and scrub oak. Ethan urged the horse down, sliding the last few yards, and spotted a shallow cave in the stone wall, a place no bigger than a bunkhouse stall, but dry. He dismounted, tied the horse to a root, and ducked inside. He wasn't alone. 2 women stood in the shadows, both stiff as drawn bows. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The storm roared outside, rain hammering the rocks, thunder rolling so close it seemed to shake the earth. The women were Apache, he knew by their dress and the dark, watchful set of their eyes. Sisters, likely, by the way they stood shoulder to shoulder. One was taller, her black hair braided down her back, her gaze steady and sharp. The other was smaller, younger perhaps, her chin lifted in defiance that barely masked fear. Ethan raised his hands slowly. "I don't want trouble," he said, keeping his voice calm. "Just shelter till the storm passes." They spoke softly to each other in their language, words quick and musical. The taller one nodded once. "You stay," she said in careful English. "Storm is angry." Relief loosened Ethan's chest. He tipped his hat. "Thank you." They shifted to one side of the cave, and Ethan took the other, leaving space between them like a line drawn in dust. He leaned against the stone, listening to the rain and trying not to stare. Minutes stretched. The cave smelled of wet earth and juniper sap. Water ran in thin lines down the rock face. The younger sister shivered. Without thinking too much, Ethan shrugged off his coat and held it out, stopping a few steps away. "You'll catch cold," he said. "Take it." "I'll be fine." The sisters exchanged another look. Slowly, the younger one stepped forward and took the coat, wrapping it around her shoulders. Her fingers brushed Ethan's for a second, warm, alive, and she met his eyes with something like surprise. "My sister is Nalin," the taller one said. "I am Sonny." "Ethan," he replied. "Ethan Cole." The storm raged on, louder now, closer. Another bolt of lightning lit the cave white for an instant, revealing the fine lines of worry around Sonny's eyes, the stubborn set of Nalin's mouth. They were traveling, Ethan gathered, headed east, avoiding the main roads. He didn't ask why. Out here, questions could be dangerous. When thunder cracked so hard it felt like the sky was tearing open, Nalin flinched and pressed closer to Sonny. Ethan, acting on instinct more than thought, shifted so he was nearer too, not touching, just present. "You can sit," he said gently. "Long storm." Sonny studied him for a long moment, then nodded. They sat on the stone floor, backs to the wall, the small space drawing them closer than any of them had planned. Time slowed. They spoke quietly, simple things. Ethan told them about his ranch near Red Willow, about the creek that ran through his land and the way the cottonwoods turned gold in fall. Sonny spoke of their people, of the mountains they called home, of stories their grandmother used to tell by the fire. Nalin listened more than she spoke, her dark eyes following Ethan as if she were measuring him, weighing something inside herself. At some point, the cold crept in deeper. The cave held the damp chill of stone, and Ethan felt it seep through his shirt. Sonny noticed too. "We share warmth," she said simply, as if stating a fact of nature. Ethan hesitated. He'd grown up with rules, clear lines about distance and decency. But the storm howled, and the cave was small, and these were two women far from home. "If that's all right with you," he said. They shifted closer, shoulders touching. Sonny sat on one side, Nullin on the other, their warmth a quiet blessing against the cold. Ethan kept his hands to himself, resting on his knees, every nerve awake and careful. The night deepened. The rain eased into a steady rhythm, like breathing. In the dark, stories turned softer, more personal. Sonny spoke of loss. Of their parents gone, of a world changing too fast. Ethan spoke of his own loneliness, of days spent talking to cattle and stars more than people. "You are alone," Nullin said softly. He nodded. "By choice." "Mostly." She considered that. Choice is a powerful thing. Silence settled again, comfortable now. Ethan felt the sisters' steady breaths, the solid reality of other lives pressed close to his own. Something in him, something long held tight, began to loosen. When Nullin's head tipped against his shoulder, light as a bird settling, Ethan froze for a moment. Then he relaxed, letting it happen. Sonny watched him closely, as if ready to pull her sister away at the first wrong move. Ethan didn't move at all. He stayed awake a long time, listening to the storm fade, to the night sounds return, the drip of water, the distant call of an owl. He thought about how little he knew of the world beyond his fences, how narrow his days had been. Near dawn, Sonny spoke again. "The night tests people," she said. "Some show who they truly are." Ethan swallowed. "I hope I passed." A faint smile touched her lips. "You did." The sky lightened, gray giving way to pale gold. The storm had passed, leaving the land washed clean. Birds stirred in the brush. They stood, stretching stiff limbs. Nullin handed back Ethan's coat, her fingers lingering just a second longer this time. "You are kind," she said, meeting his eyes without flinching. "So are you," he replied. Outside, the world felt new, as if the rain had scrubbed more than dust from the ground. Ethan untied his horse, glancing back at the sisters. "Red Willow's 2 miles south," he said. "If you need supplies." Sonny shook her head. "We go another way." "But," she paused. "If you walk with an open heart, your path will not always be lonely." They turned and disappeared into the trees, moving with the quiet confidence of people who knew the land deeply. Ethan stood there a long moment after they were gone. The ride home felt different. The ranch gates creaked open to the same fields, the same creek, the same sky, but Ethan saw them with new eyes. He realized how much of his life he'd spent hiding from connection, mistaking solitude for safety. In the weeks that followed, he found himself riding into town more often, speaking up when he might have stayed silent, listening more closely to the stories of others. He hired help from nearby families, shared meals, learned names. Sometimes, at night, he thought of the cave, the closeness, the quiet trust, the simple human warmth that had changed him more than any sermon or scolding ever could. He never saw Sonny and Nullin again. But the night he took shelter with them stayed with him, a turning point etched deep into his bones. It taught him that purity was not about distance or denial, but about respect. That intimacy could be gentle. That a man could be strong without being hard. And that sometimes, in the wild places of the world, a single stormy night could open a heart that had been closed for far too long.